If you want to create your own AI anime, then Seedance 2 is the best tool that you can use. It is amazing for action scenes where your character goes Super Saiyan or it does any type of shot where there's movement involved, and it also has some real emotion. But unfortunately, it's not perfect. Because your first generating will be easy, but creating the second one that is consistent, is in the same environment, location, has the same outfit, has the same character consistency, that is the hardest part. And that is where most people fail. And while making this video, I ran into all of those problems, but I found a solution to them. So if you want to create your own AI anime, make sure to watch the entire video because I will show you in-depth features that I haven't seen anyone do before. But first, let me show you the AI anime that I made.
What is this? With this, we can save the world.
Save the world? The world doesn't need saving. It needs to be fixed.
Kai?
Get out of my way.
Kai! Stop! Please!
Then stop me.
Now, before I walk you through the entire workflow, let me first tell you which tool you would need for this. The first tool that I'm using is Claude, and I use that for all of the prompting. I will leave a link to my free Skool community where you can find all of the prompts that I used in an organized HTML file, so you can copy them and take a look at all of the structures. Then for the tools, I'm mainly using Higgsfield because it has some custom features that I'm using, and I'm also using Nano Pro and Seedance 2 in there. I will leave a link to Higgsfield as well in the description down below. Then the next tool is optional. It is Suno. I used it for some background music. And the last tool that I used is Premiere Pro, but you can also use CapCut or DaVinci Resolve or any other video editor that you like to stitch together all of your clips. Okay, to get to the finished result of our video, I used this 4-step process. First, I made my images in black and white. This is basically just to do my storyboarding. Then second step is making these images colored, so I have consistent scenes with consistent color all across the scenes. The third step is an optional step, but I found out that it helped me quite a bit, which is making animation notes. So you can see where I give notes to the AI, so it better understands what I want to see on the screen. And then the last step is using those images as a reference and generating videos with it through Seedance. Now let's start at the beginning, your story. So for this story, I got actually inspired by another YouTube video that I was watching, and then I thought to myself, like, why don't I turn this into an anime? So shoutouts for Yonside for coming up with this story. I used it as an inspiration and I tried to make my own AI visuals on this. Then we move on to the next step, which is character design. The easiest way to come up with this is to just start generating images, and as soon as you have a character that you like, you can start using that and you can create a character sheet of that. The way that worked for me is I went over to Higgsfield, then I selected Nano 2 and I added in this prompt right here, which is about two men standing in front of each other, and it's an anime style. One has light radiating and the other one has like a dark kind of like magic to it. So this was kind of like the basis for my characters. Out of this, I got some inspiration and I used this as a reference. So after playing around a little bit and deciding on my character, I basically locked it in by making this character sheet. And I will give you the full prompt in my free Skool community where you can find all of it. Essentially, you can see it in this HTML file where I have these different character prompts that I used for this video. So the first character reference sheet is Kai in his normal state, and then we also have him in his powered up state. Every time you change your character, like every time you add something to your character, let it be a scar, let it be, like in this case, having dark energy around him, you want to be making a new character sheet because that's easier for the AI to follow it. Then I did it with this other character that I named Saitama, and here we have his normal state and his powered up state. So we have like the good guy and the bad guy. You could stop right here, but to make this even better, if you're generating a lot of different shots, is to turn this into an element. And if you want to turn this into an element yourself, which is basically a bit of a LoRa, then you can go over to video, Seedance 2, and here you can start and upload your own element. The annoying thing is Higgsfield is constantly changing around this position. Like this used to be put in the image generation tab, but now they moved it around. So here you can create a new element. You can upload as many images as you'd like. I would say the more the better. For example, what I did, I uploaded about 20 references of both characters and I made each element separately. By the way, this process is different from using the Soul ID character. Although it looks very similar, it is different when tagging your character. But what you can do now, if you go over to Nanobanana Pro, is you can add your character in here. And that is super useful because now I can tag Kai and I can tag Saitama, and I don't have to upload my reference each and every time because it's already added in there. You could also just do this with your reference sheet. In my opinion, this works better because the AI has more data to work with and more reference images, so it knows what it looks like. If you want to create more references, you can click on reference and then it goes into this page right here where it's added that image as a reference. Then you simply give it a simple prompt where you say, show this anime character in a unique setting, 90s anime style, no text, close-up, natural background, and then you just hit generate. You can do this in Nanobanana Pro or Nanobanana 2, doesn't really matter. It is all to train the AI to have more different angles. Just make sure that your character looks consistent. So here we already have another reference. But with anime, it's pretty simple because the character is mostly consistent. So yeah, you can do this a bunch of time, then train your character, and then you have that character. And then you can move over to the next step, which is creating your own manga pages. Now I hear you thinking, why the hell are we using these manga pages? For me, there are two reasons for it. First one is control and consistency, and the second one is saving time. You see, generating a lot of images takes a lot of time, and you can do each one separately, but you have to do a lot of thinking. If you do this within like a comic book style manga page, you get multiple scenes into one. The reason why I'm starting off with black and white is because then I have a bit more control over the outcome, and I can later make sure that the consistency is consistent all across every shot. So how do you make the prompts for these black and white manga pages? Well, this process is pretty hard to explain, but let me try to do my best here. I used this process. So I have it start off with this block at the beginning. It is basically a somewhat of an instruction of what type of style I want to apply. So it is black and white manga page, hand-drawn ink line work with bold black outlines. Then I have like some details in there of what I'm looking for. The other thing that I did as to some rules is that I have added the character sheet and I've tagged each character sheet with the name. And I wanted it to start with tagging each character in each shot. So as you see here, we have it tagged right here. And then each time I have a character do something, I tag the character. And this way, Nanobanana better understands what each character has to be doing. Of course, this might go wrong a few times, but the better and more detailed you write this out, the better it will follow up your prompt. I'm not gonna go in depth on like how I wrote this. It's basically a process of going back and forth with Claude on helping you to write a detailed prompt. After you do that for each and every shot, then you have your concept. For me, it was all about the colors. I wanted to get them consistent. That's why I first wanted to create the scene, and then after that, I can color them in using AI, which is super easy to do nowadays with Nanobanana. So what I did is I took the reference image of the black and white image, which is this one. Then I asked Nanobanana to color this in. And I did this a bunch of times until I got a version where I liked the colors. This is also the part where you can make some tweaks. For example, I used this image as a reference and I wanted to tweak it a little bit. So I did it again and I tried making it a little bit better. And then eventually I ended up with this. Now again, this is still not perfect because here the mountain is a bit screwed. So I took this image, put it inside of Nanobanana, and then I fixed fixed this background over here. So to summarize, what I did is I took the black and white image of every generation that I did and I added a prompt to it. I added in the color codes that I'd like to have in that image. You can ask Claude to give you all of the color codes for each of your characters, like for the hair, for the outfit, for all of that. And then you also add in a reference where you already have generated that color. So that's the first reference that you did, because that will be the set color for all of your generations. So then you combine that into your prompt and then outcome results like this. Also, you can see it's not totally one-to-one the exact same as the sketch. This is also the part where you can make a few tweaks, because this determines how your outcome will be in the final version of your video. The next step, which is optional, is adding in animation notes. Basically what we're doing here is we're drawing on the image and we're describing what we want to have the image doing when we start generating a video from it. It makes it more complicated, and that's why it's also optional. If you want to do this yourself, then you need to use this prompt right here. This is the first prompt I used inside of Claude, and this helps you with setting the tone for how it needs to do those annotations. Basically describes like what to do with the drawings and all of that. Then what you do next is completely customizable, because here what I did is I basically started like importing my image and then describing, talking to the AI and telling what I want. The AI translated my thoughts into a prompt, and then I used that prompt and put it inside of Nano Banana Pro. So I did that for each and every shot, and now we are finished and ready to start generating. For this process, you want to go over to video, then you click Seedance 2.0, and here we can start with Seedance. I'm mostly using these settings of like 15 seconds, and then here I'm always using the elements which I have uploaded from my characters, which are Kai and Saitama. Now for the prompt structure, I actually use the following prompt. Now I start off with my style. It's the same opening line every clip. Then I have my first frame note, which is literally do not use the uploaded image as a literal first frame. Because if we go over to Higgsfield, and I'm using this element right here. Now I'm using it as a reference and not as a start frame, but still it sometimes has the error to start the video with that image as a start frame. Like here's an example. Then I describe my characters and I also add in the age and the height. Next up, we have voices, which is very important. I add the same voice prompt every time, so it talks in the same manner. I've noticed that Seedance is quite good at keeping the voice consistent without having to play around with this or using alternative methods. Then I'm also adding in a bit of timeline prompting, which is saying like, oh, this happens at the 1st second to the 4th second, this happens at the 4th second to the 9th second, basically describing what I want to have happen. And I also already have done that on the reference image, but it helps a bit more. For the audio, I'm saying no music, because that's something I want to add in myself later. So that is the prompt style that we're using for this. In a nutshell, that's what you need to know. You can go through all of my prompts to see exactly what I did, but if you're generating this yourself, you will have a different prompt because you have a different story, but this is the structure that I used for that. Additional things you can mention is the camera movement, how you can make those shots feel alive. For example, you can mention that it shouldn't be all static. You can do push-ins, you can do pullbacks. You can also include like hair movement or clothing. This all brings it more to life. If you do that correctly, then you might end up with something like this. And still, I would recommend generating this scene multiple different times, because you can also cut the best parts from different generations and you might have a few failed ones. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, some of these scenes took like 2 to 4 tries. Now the last part is where you bring it all together, and that is in the editing. So for this, I don't really have a complicated timeline. The only thing I did is I stitched it together. You can see that some shots are longer while other shots are shorter. That is all because I've made a few cuts in there. For example, let's say I didn't like the next bit. Then I just generated again, cut that exact part that I did like, put it in there, replaced it. And then the last part is adding in some music. You can do any type of music. I used Suno for this, but you can also do something through Artlist or Epidemic Sound. Now, my main takeaway from this process is that it can be quite complicated, and I don't want to discourage you from trying this out yourself. You don't have to follow my exact method, but AI is not a prompt and done kind of tool. It is a tool where you should expect a lot of failure. failures. And it does come at a price, but if you see it as a tool, as similar as a computer or a camera or anything like that, and you understand that you need to like get into the trenches to actually get good at it, then you will get good results. So keep trying, keep staying consistent, and try to push the boundaries each time. If you want to try this out yourself, I would recommend using Higgsfield for this. In this comparison, it came out cheapest among some of the other tools that they're using. That's why I'm using it too. And if you want to see all of the prompts that I use, then please join the free community where we can hang out and where we can chat everything AI related. Click the video that's on the screen right now if you want to learn how to make your own AI music video using Seedance.